I guess I was the only fool to pay theater money.
I have
to
not
see
paid
it.
theater
You
money.
actually went to see it in a theater? Wow.
I just, for some reason, I convinced myself, everyone's saying it's bad. Everyone's saying Jared Leto is an issue. Maybe this time will be different.
Oh,
I
Rich,
just
why
seen
would you
No
do
Way
that?
Home. I was
Rich.
riding high on the superhero, like, they're still good. They're still locking it in. Maybe this one, it's not technically Marvel, it's Sony, but maybe this one will be different.
So apparently Morbius
Yeah,
will be available
foolish.
on Netflix at some point. And then it will be available to Disney Plus.
Frankly, I would be embarrassed to have it on my Netflix watch list. Hey, welcome back to Even More Mashed Up. We are the pop culture podcast talking about all things pop culture. I'm Alan.
And I'm Patrick. And even though it's a week or so or a couple weeks too late, I like to think of this as our Mother's Day episode because you can't spell Multiverse of Madness without Mom.
Oh, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Although making this movie the Mother's Day movie is something I actually want to talk about in some detail.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about regarding mothers, or a mother in particular, in the film.
Well, a kind of mother, one might say.
Yeah.
Certainly she cares about her kids, whether they exist or
She
not.
cares about other people's kids,
Yes.
Yeah.
technically.
Yes, she's a... Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't figured it out,
Interesting plot
we're
point.
talking Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness today.
Well, you did say Multiverse of Madness.
I did.
So,
That's why I said if you couldn't figure it out,
but
you know.
I guess maybe somebody wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, a lot of M things coming out from Marvel. We've had Moon Knight, Multiverse of Madness. We've got Ms. Marvel. A lot of M's.
It's true. Yeah.
A lot of alliteration.
That's
some
true.
of us love alliteration.
That's right. I'm assuming
that's
Alan.
That's a good thing.
That might be one of the things Alan liked about this movie. Might be the alliteration.
I didn't have that on the list, but it would be near the top. Actually,
You had a list of things you liked?
no.
Okay,
not
I was gonna
really.
say,
I was making that up
Okay.
because it just felt like.
Is that just because you didn't make one, or you just don't have anything that you liked?
No. I think there's some things we could talk about liking.
Okay.
I'm looking at my notes. I've only got a couple of pages of notes, so I don't quite know where we're going to go today.
Well, let me ask you this question.
All right.
In terms of
And then I had a question to kick off with you. So go.
So thinking about, kind of the multiverse of madness, would you describe it as a multiverse of madness or mehness?
Oh, that's a good one. It mirrors my first question for you, which we kind of raised in the intro, if Rich is going to use it or not. But
I potentially will.
Every time we talk about superhero movies,
Yes.
well, for the last couple of years, I've been talking about how we were in peak superhero and now we're post-peak superhero.
Only a couple years you've been saying
Does this
that?
movie serve? I feel like, when do you think I started? I'm trying
I feel
to
like
imagine.
you've been saying that since the beginning.
No, I think we started when we were at least a little bit before Infinity War. Maybe
Gosh, now I'm
when
really...
the sequels.
I don't
when the
know. I
sequels started
feel
coming
like
out, I think
Guardians
is
of
when
the
it
Galaxy
happened.
2 might have been. Because you really did not.
I'm
That's
saying
true.
the sequels. Yeah, when the
Yeah,
sequels
what-
started happening, I think is when.
When was Guardians 2?
I don't remember.
Gosh, it was a while ago,
The
wasn't
Googles.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, here I got the computer up here. Let me see. Guardians of the Galaxy.
I would have to...
2017.
Wow, that's 5
Not that
years.
long ago.
I was not a big fan of that movie.
That's
I
right.
don't know if I said post-peak superhero then.
I'm
but,
just going to assume you did because you say it all the time.
yeah.
Well, if it wasn't
Well,
that one, it was like Thor 2, maybe Iron Man 2.
I don't remember saying it for Thor 2.
Iron
or
Man 2 is
2.
like
It
the
felt too
third
early
film
then.
in the MCU. If that was when he said we're past post
Right,
Is
right.
it really
peak
that?
superhero, then
Right, then
Was
there
it
was...
really that early on?
yeah, it was.
See,
there
what
was,
I remember
there was
is
Iron
saying-
Man, and then there was Hulk, and then there was Iron Man 2,
Oh,
Yeah.
and
geez,
then you
okay,
got
that
Cap, Thor, and Avengers. So
Right,
Yeah.
and I don't think I would have been saying post-peak then, right?
No,
I
I
feel
thought
like-
Iron Man 2 came out much later.
Yeah. I feel like the show, when we started the podcast, I would always talk about how this was peak superhero and what Patrick had always been born for.
Well, I don't know. That's what I've been born for.
Shifted.
It's what I've been waiting for.
Well,
like a Spartan, you were bred for the superhero.
To reduce my life
he's
to
been
just
training for this whole life.
I don't know if training isn't quite the right word. I mean, it's not like a.
It's like the Hulk.
You trained.
There's
for
not
this
like
your
it's not like
life.
a Rocky montage.
It's like the Hulk in the Infinity
comics.
Gauntlet, you know.
It's not like
you know what? It would be the greatest Rocky montage ever if it were just you
reading comics.
It's like a little kid.
It's a shot of me reading comics,
reading comic books.
Oh no, it's not a shot of
going to the comic book shop.
It starts with a shot of me as a little kid, and then I gradually age over the course of the montage.
But you don't do it. You're just reading comics. You're not.
Oh no! I'm reading comics. I'm inventorying the comics. I'm updating prices on comics. Right. I'm creating tallies of how many times each member of the Avengers have appeared in the series.
Well, did you wear like superhero underoos when you were a kid?
No, never had underoos. We've had this conversation before about underoos.
Okay, so you never had. Okay, so I'm just trying to think of like how else you might have been training.
Well, what about lunchboxes?
Oh, I did have the some of the Mego figures.
Oh, there you go. Good.
Lunchboxes were a big deal back then.
Yeah, and what about like superhero figures? Right, you must have had some of those.
Oh yeah, the action figures. Yeah,
not really as a kid. I had mainly Star Wars when I was a kid in terms of action figures. I mean, I have action figures now.
Wait. Oh yeah, you've got a whole.
Well, no, we're aware.
What are the big head things called?
Funko Pops.
Funko Pops.
Big head things.
Yeah. Big head things.
I was going to call them bobbleheads, but I knew that was wrong.
So getting back to the question I asked.
Yeah, I don't mind the idea of you starting as like a 6-year-old with a comic book and then just using special effects to age you at the same place.
That's what I'm saying.
A comic book. Not bad. So
just more and more makeup.
Is this movie more evidence that we are in the post-peak superhero era?
I would say no.
Really?
I would say yes. Okay. I would say yes, assuredly.
I said probably in my notes. Make the case for this being something that's going to revive the superhero genre.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily going to revive the superhero genre. But I thought it was I thought it was a perfectly good film. I enjoyed it. I don't really
listen to yourself.
Yeah, perfectly
Just
good.
listen to yourself. It was perfectly good. That does
film.
not
I enjoyed
sound.
It. Yeah.
No, you said it was perfectly good. That doesn't.
Perfectly and good are both
perfectly
good things.
Yeah, but when you put them together, it's like it was perfectly good. Yeah. It sounds. Yeah. It sounds.
If you told me
like
I had done something perfectly good, I would be disappointed.
It would be nice if you actually.
We're
still waiting for you to achieve perfectly good. You know, we'll.
I mean, exactly. Which is a low bar. Like even your joke, Patrick, suggests that your language perfectly good is like, yeah, it was perfectly good.
Here's what I think. I think it is a
competently made movie.
I think it is a really good Doctor Strange sequel. The problem is that everyone went into it expecting it to be the next big MCU tentpole thing, and it's not really. It's a Doctor Strange film. So,
yeah. Oh no, the trailer almost kind of lied to us too.
Well, but that's one of the things that I liked about it. I liked that it wasn't what you expected going in.
Yeah.
Like that I thought was a strength.
Yeah, I mean,
and in fact, one of the fair or foul I brought was Kevin Smith.
Oh,
and his review of Doctor Strange 2 was not the movie I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I think that's the problem. It's like everyone's like, "Ooh, Tom Cruise as Superior Iron Man is going to be in it. Ooh, this is going to introduce the X-Men. Yeah. Ooh, the what if Doctor Strange is going to be like." Everyone kind of had all of these expectations for it. And it didn't really do any of those things. And I'm like, I feel like some of the tepid reaction that other people have had towards the film are largely because it didn't do the things they thought it was going to do, as opposed to anything the film itself did.
But I would like to say that's not where my critique is coming from. I wasn't like really enthusiastic about a Tom Cruise Iron Man.
No, I know that's not. I'm talking about kind of the critiques you've seen in general, not your critique in general.
Yeah,
or specifically.
Yeah, for me, it was a very competently made movie.
Yeah.
The special effects were fine. It was I would say perfectly enjoyable. Although there were a couple of moments I laughed where I don't think I was supposed to laugh.
What were those?
Like there were a couple of moments that were like Ghost Rider-y. to me.
Oh well, that's Sam Raimi. I mean, you're gonna get kind of those Raimi touches that are a little bit Ghost Rider-y.
Yeah, and I liked Ghost Rider better because Ghost Rider kind of was like, this is what we're doing from front to end. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like Multiverse of Madness was doing that from front to end. So I laughed out loud when Doctor Strange got thrown into the piano and the sheet music got thrown up in the air. And he turned
and there's a
the
whole
sheet
like
music
rock battle.
Right. And then like, you know, the guy he's battling like creates a staff to catch the music notes. I thought it was an effort to do something different with a fight scene, and I found myself I laughed out loud at that. And I don't think I was supposed to laugh at that.
Well, here's one of the things that's interesting about that, because I read an article where apparently Raimi and I think it's Danny Elfman that did the music for the film. That
would make sense.
They had a whole bunch of different ideas of the kind of music that they would use in that scene. And ultimately, Kevin Feige basically said, no, do Beethoven versus Bach. And I think in some of what you're talking about, Alan, I think speaks to this, is that there are moments where, you know, there's moments where you can kind of see Sam Raimi being Sam Raimi. But I had a feeling in the film that Raimi, because Raimi would do a film that's kind of like Ghost Rider from the get-go. And I felt like there were moments where he was being kind of pulled back from some of that.
That may be true.
And I think
that may be true.
I think the music scene is one. Like I was like, I didn't laugh at it, but there was part of me that was like, oh, I see what they're going for there. It just didn't feel as cool to me as I think it was meant to, largely because the music choices didn't really work for me. And I think there's a point where you kind of see that Feige as the, you know, having the kind of the main creative voice at this point of the MCU, I think he might have pulled things back and watered things down a little bit.
Maybe, but I would go further. I think that the problem for me was less the music choice. Like, I don't care. Beethoven versus Bach. I don't know. Is that better than like East Coast versus West Coast? I don't know. But I think in the context of the movie that it sometimes is trying to kind of deal with some pretty heavy trauma.
Yeah.
And what it means. It was just like, it felt, again, like Ghost Rider, it was kind of consistent from front to end. Like, it was a very jarring kind of move, and I couldn't tell whether it was meant to be jarring or whether it was like that kind of tussling behind the scenes you're talking about. But within the context of the movie, I just felt like it didn't work. The other time was when Doctor Strange in the one universe gets thrown out the window and he lands on the fence spike.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then
that's the same third eye pops open. That's the same universe in Doctor Strange as the piano
but
fight.
There you go. Right. Yeah, it's like it's all, like when the eye popped open, I think you were supposed to gasp. But again, I laughed. And I felt like, because again, I don't think they were
like
going
a sort
for
of
humor.
Schlocky horror thing, yeah.
Right, exactly. Schlocky. And God knows I love schlocky.
Yeah.
But there was this inconsistency across the movie that makes it hard for me to reach like the perfectly good, as you define perfectly good, stage, and leaves it more at the perfectly good or perfectly fine stage for me.
Yeah, well, I think we're making
like
the same point, because I think Raimi does have kind of that very schlocky horror sensibility. And again, it popped up in moments, but there were also ways where it felt to me like it was kind of muted a little bit. And I think that's...
I agree. Yeah.
And I don't know if it would have been better if he would have been able to go full Raimi the whole time, or if it should have been more muted the whole time.
I feel like if Marvel wants to get past post-peak superhero, they're going to have to trust directors to do something different. Because the reason why I think this is post-peak superhero is because it feels kind of ordinary to me. Like it just
we've sort of seen this story stand before out in all the other movies,
right? And it doesn't stand out to me in any way. And to me, that's the post-peak slough. Like I'm not saying this is like, you know, going down the steep Wundagore mountain in terms of decline, but it's just, I'm not sure it's distinctive and good enough to keep the momentum moving like it was 5 years ago.
Well, and I think we've talked about that before with Eternals, that there is kind of this way of, I would have liked to have seen Sam Raimi be given kind of the same free reign that, say, Waititi or James Gunn get on their franchises.
Right.
But I feel, I think we talked about this with Eternals, that there's a way in which that, the MCU has become such a juggernaut, and part of that is,
right,
kind of the films appealing to as large and broad an audience as possible, which I think particularly in the post-Endgame era means that they're getting a little bit watered down into something very kind of safe, palatable, and generic.
Yeah,
and I should say there's a danger to that.
Yeah. There was a little bit of that in Doctor Strange, and I feel there's been a little bit of that. They're at a weird, and this is kind of the thesis, you're right, that we've developed over the last several Marvel discussions. Like, I feel like if they're not going to trust Sam Raimi to be Raimi and make that film, like they did, Waititi, right? Like Thor has been transformed by letting him be himself in making those movies. And Doctor Strange didn't feel like that to me. And I wonder why. I mean, the first, Thor 2 was so bad. I understand why they would bring somebody in and be like you've got to do something different. And Guardians, when it launched, it was a series only serious fans knew about. Nobody took them very seriously. So is it that Doctor Strange is meant to kind of carry on that main thread that leads to this kind of conservative storytelling? I'm not sure.
Well, I think part of it too.
What's going on there?
I think
but it's
part of what else sort of I think might have been a obstacle for this film is that they had to completely rejigger it, because originally this film was supposed to come out before No Way Home. And then it got moved, which led to a whole bunch of reshoots and kind of reworking the story. And there are ways in which there are ways in which that I feel the plot feels smaller than maybe it originally was going to be, and maybe feels a little bit stitched together at times from, because Raimi has said, like, the original cut of the film was 40 minutes longer. Like, they cut almost a third of the film out. And so I really kind of wonder, like, how much of this was because of COVID, it got bumped to a different place in the schedule, and so I had to completely rejigger what its storyline was. And so I think that's another factor that kind of...
As it sits, I would say that rearranging those two films would have made Doctor Strange make a little bit more sense, kind of building towards what the Spider-Man movie does. Yeah. Because it does feel small in comparison, right?
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man is the big reveal. Yeah. And now it's like this, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think that's why people thought it was supposed to be the, kickoff to the whole, MCU universe of, everything combined.
Well, and I think originally it was supposed to be. And then
absolutely.
It got bumped. It's sort of like, what story do they have left to tell? Now, I think they told a good story in terms of it being a Doctor Strange film. But I think it got a little bit, messed over by the shift in schedule. Of the film.
I hear that.
Because you look at what this film does with the multiverse versus what No Way Home did. It's No Way Home. It's kind of like, the multiverse is not that crazy in here. It seems pretty straightforward. It's just jumping from universe to universe.
Yeah. And it seems kind of like a watered down crossover in some ways when Spider-Man was so much more ambitious.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I did like that the movie started with a joke at Hawkeye's expense.
I did not like that.
Why would you go to an archer or a bug-themed hero? But I thought it worked out well for Hawkeye in the end,
various
right? Because
various bug-themed heroes.
Right.
There are a lot of bug heroes.
Numerous.
It just right. But in the end, it was good for Hawkeye, right? Because Doctor Strange could not have done worse in going to Wanda than going to Hawkeye. I think Hawkeye would have done better, actually. So
Hawkeye would have helped.
Hawkeye would have done better at what exactly?
Right, exactly. Trying to help. He would have tried to be helpful in some way.
He would have been like, no, I'm the evil Hawkeye who's going to do something to control the multiverse.
Right. Now, I mean, Wanda's fairly powerful. I'm not sure what Hawkeye could do, but he would have at least added moral support.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it does continue the theme that we saw from WandaVision, which is that nobody really pays enough attention to Wanda and her trauma, and the Avengers do not do a good job of helping Wanda in particular.
Yes.
With what she's going through.
They just leave her by herself, and then shockingly that ends badly.
Yes, that sums up a lot of Wanda.
And that might be a good transition, because one of the things that was kind of a twist, right, was that the Scarlet Witch was the big bad in the movie. And I liked that because it saved us from like what felt like too easy a cop-out at the end of the Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
She's
just fine now. She's like moved
on. And she's got apple trees and she's moved on, and there's been no kind of justice brought to her. And there's been, like Patrick said, and it's one of the big problems with the Marvel Universe, there's no consideration of trauma.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I find interesting is because one of the
trauma was a
lot of people have complained about Wanda's arc in Multiverse of Madness and how it sort of ruins, it doesn't make any sense regarding the end of WandaVision. A lot of people are like, they completely trashed the character. But when you go,
I can't believe anybody said that.
Oh, there's a lot of people saying that.
That's crazy.
But when you go back to WandaVision, I mean, I've been thinking about this. She created Westview out of the trauma of losing Vision. And at the end of WandaVision, she loses Vision again and her two kids. And you got to think, how is that not going to cause her, particularly when everyone leaves her alone again, how is that going to cause her to have a profound reaction? And then you get the fact that the other thing I remember is that when Wanda casts the spell on Agatha that kind of leaves her trapped as Agnes, like Agatha says, you can't be that cruel, and Wanda does it anyway.
Yeah,
and so there is kind of a way in which that there's a logic to the Wanda we end up with in Multiverse of Madness that I think does follow a certain logic from WandaVision. That like you said, Alan, she's never really paid for what she does. And so she just keeps doing it.
She's never coped with it. Yeah. And she's never coped with it. And I think your critique of the Avengers is a really important one there. They've obviously let her just kind of wander off.
Yeah.
And, I mean, number one, it's being a terrible friend, right?
Yeah.
They should be there for her in this moment of trauma.
Also
and number two,
like kind of superhero. So just
a terrible superhero. And that was my point.
Yeah.
Like somebody of that power, and you're letting them just kind of wander off in the world. So I thought that was, I really appreciated that in the movie. I thought that was the most intellectually, emotionally interesting part of the movie.
Are they letting her
but that
wander?
Raises some issues.
Are they letting her wander off, Alan? Or are they letting her Wanda off?
Wander off?
Or Wanda?
Yeah,
and
I
that
got
came
it.
up in the intro?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
So
I do have, that being said, you began. Oh no! Please go ahead. I want to talk a little bit more about Wanda.
I want to talk Wanda as well. Because
Wanda talk.
Because one of the other things that I found really interesting about what this film does with Wanda is that between WandaVision, is that it almost struck me that the MCU just got done doing their own version of the Dark Phoenix arc.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought about that.
It's basically the same, like, Superwoman, a woman that has certain abilities, gets them ramped up to, cosmic levels.
Abilities.
And then they run out of control with her until she realizes how she's gone too far and has to kill herself. It's Dark Phoenix Saga.
Destroys herself. Yeah, it is. And that's, it's an interesting, idea. Yeah, like it's definitely there. And of course, whenever you give a woman that much power, right, it's going to go bad.
Well,
and Wanda kills Xavier.
Yes, that's true. Or she kills Xavier.
That's a nice point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Well, I have a theory about that whole because the other thing about it being the Dark Phoenix saga, as well as other things in the film, is a lot of people are like, "Oh, I can't believe they've done that to Wanda. They've killed her. They've destroyed her character and whatnot."
Yeah,
they've already set up a way that you can bring a completely redeemed Wanda back.
Oh,
do the multiverse?
Absolutely.
No, not the multiverse.
For all of the characters.
Not the multiverse.
So it's what, her sacrifice at the end of the film?
Well, number one, it's just that we don't see a body at the end of the film.
Right.
But
well, I assume they didn't want to.
They've already got the whole Darkhold element running around. They name check.
Didn't she get rid of it?
They name check Chthon at one point, which is the demon that possessed Wanda back in Avengers 185 to 187. Like, it would be very easy.
We all remember those.
It would be very easy to do the same thing that they did to bring Jean Grey back, which was reveal that no, that wasn't Wanda. That was, in this case, Chthon in a Wanda suit. Because one of the things that I find really interesting is that when
the owl Wanda,
when Xavier talks,
that would be awful.
When Xavier talks to, because when Xavier talks to the Wanda that's buried under all that rubble in the mindscape or whatever, we're supposed to assume that that's the Wanda from the 838 universe. But one of the things I found interesting is that she's buried under a bunch of rubble that includes WandaVision. Like, there's a TV screen playing WandaVision there. That would have no connection to her. So you could very easily say that's not the 838 Wanda that he was talking to. That's the actual Wanda that the Darkhold and Chthon has corrupted and replaced.
No, that's a really good sleuthing. But I have a question for Rich now.
Yes.
Rich, in that classic arc, do you think 185, 186, or 187 was the best issue? Like, do you have a favorite in that classic Avengers arc?
I feel like I'm always a sucker for like the beginning of an arc where like kind of starts setting everything up. It always feels like you've got more potential and hope in the beginning of arc, whether they're good or bad. So I'm always a sucker for the beginning. Like, Lord of the Rings and whatever. Like, I'm always a sucker for the beginning when they're like setting out for the adventure and whatnot.
So you're a big 185 guy then, is what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I was just curious.
The beginning always has more potential to me than the ending.
Right. And then the middle just feels like it's carrying water.
9 times out of 10, the middle is just like, we need to explain all the stuff so the ending makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
It's just filler
like
almost.
Doing that story work, So I think we both agree that 186 is kind of like the low point of that Chthon arc.
Yeah, like it's I'm not saying it's
terrible,
fine, but it's perfectly good.
You took the words right out of my mouth. 186 is perfectly good, but 185 and 187 transcend it for sure.
Yeah.
Are you guys enjoying yourselves?
Quite a lot,
okay.
Actually.
I'm just letting you roll. You're clearly having a good time, so I'm just going to sit back here and relax. Yeah. You let me know when you've exhausted yoursels.
Yeah. I think that was some Dave Wenzel art, right?
It was actually John Byrne.
Of course not. Dave Wenzel was only on very briefly. It's the only thing I've ever stumped Patrick on regarding the Avengers. So
I would hold on to that too.
So going back to Wanda.
Yes.
The movie's not very good for moms, right? Despite your dedication to Mother's Day at the beginning. Like I think it's problematic and worrisome in the way that it presents moms. When Wanda says, "I'm not a monster, I'm a mother," and then proceeds to do what she does, it associates a whole bunch of things with mothers and mothering that I would not necessarily associate with them.
Yeah, no, it's
like,
definitely...
It almost makes you wonder, like, if Wanda had from what we see, they seem to have good parents, but it almost makes you wonder, like, do they not have good parents? Like...
Yeah, like, there's...
Like, and her idea of a mother is something like that.
I get trauma, but she says that directly, right? Like, what I'm doing is not being a monster, it's being a mother. And I'm like, I think that Sam Raimi and I might have different definitions of mother and motherhood.
Well, to be fair, I don't think Sam Raimi means us to take Wanda at her word there. Like, we're clearly meant to see her as she is the monster that she denies being. But you're right that Wanda storyline plays into any number of problematic tropes regarding mothers and women in general. I mean, you know, there's the fact that, I mean, just the sheer fact that Wanda goes completely off the deep end just because she can't be a mother, because her kids are figments of her imagination, is playing into those ideas
one of the points I was going to go for.
Of children as what, you know, children and motherhood as what define women. And, you know, when a woman can't be a mother, like, she loses her purpose and in this case goes nuts and almost destroys the multiverse.
Right, like madness and destruction. And so all of that you just said is where I wanted to go with this, is that in that way, I mean, maybe, you know, Raimi doesn't, I don't think Raimi actually is like, well, this is what motherhood means. Like, you have to destroy the multiverse. But Wanda's idea, you know, I don't think the film, like, what makes Wanda interesting is that kind of complexity in her, and yet it gets flattened with this motherhood stuff. And can I ask you a comic book question? You know, like well,
I don't know, like because you just spent like 5 minutes with Rich mocking my comic book knowledge. So please, yes, let's.
You're right. I should ask. No, I'm gonna. I'll ask Rich the question then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask Rich instead. If Wanda really wants kids, like the ones she had in WandaVision, which she had created on her own, couldn't she just create those kids again? Why does she need to steal someone else's
solution? Because she didn't even, again, in that case, the kids, she didn't even take over someone else's kids. Like you said, she brought them in from nothingness.
Right.
It was fully created for life. So at any point, she could do that. One could argue that seconds after WandaVision, she could be driving home and have her 2 kids in the back seat.
Absolutely.
Because the only reason she lost the kids was simply because, according to Agatha, like, she made the spell wrong, essentially, and that the kids can't leave. You know, she didn't like check off a point when she made the kids, so they can't leave Westview or whatever.
Just like the way she's taken this hellscape of a land where she lives and turned it into a beautiful apple orchard. She could have her kids there with her.
I also don't know why she lives in the hellscape.
Well, but I think part of that, part of the answer to your question, Alan, is that she doesn't want a Tommy and Billy that exist only because of her power. She wants a Tommy and Billy that are real.
But every Tommy and Billy exist only because of her power.
No, that's the point. All the other Tommy and Billies are real. It
seems like they do exist for real.
All the other,
but that's a weird thing too.
She has no husband. Where did they come from?
They don't answer that in the film, but they're clearly not figments of that Wanda's imagination. They don't appear to be figments of that Wanda's imagination. Well, they are, as Wanda said.
We don't know that for sure.
No, Wanda says that in every other world in the multiverse, the children exist. It's this one where the children don't exist and only exist because of her power. That's why she wants them. She doesn't want she doesn't want kids that are figments. She wants kids that are real.
They could exist in other universes as creations of her power too, though. I don't know.
But I think that's what the film is. That's the distinction the film is drawing, is that in all the other, you know, multiverses, Tommy and Billy are not figments of Wanda's power. They are children that she gave birth to.
But you know what? Yeah, but they're not her kids then, right? I don't.
No, they're not her kids. That's why part of what she's doing is wrong.
Right, but I don't. She could kidnap any 2 kids then, and make them hers. She doesn't have to do the shadow walking. She doesn't have to use the dark hole.
She could have kidnapped a Tommy and Billy who don't have a Wanda.
Right, like again, if we're talking about multiverse,
she could have done she could have gone to an adoption agency and adopted 2 kids.
Yeah, but then she wouldn't have Tommy and Billy. She wants Tommy and Billy.
Yeah, but even as Patrick said, that you could go to any other universe where, if it's an infinite number of universes, there was a universe where she died after having the kids. Those kids are now essentially have no mother. She can be the hero and walk in and help them, and she wins. You know?
No, like there's so many better solutions that she could have adopted.
Oh yeah,
but again, she's an emotional woman, so she's going to do these crazy destructive things. I don't know. I just that whole arc. As much as I appreciated them trying to deal with Wanda's trauma, I just felt like they didn't handle it very well.
Yeah, no, they
well, because I felt like they didn't really deal with the trauma. They dealt with one specific aspect of it and like try to wrap the trauma around that. Like her trauma to a point, while yes, it's about her kids, a lot of her trauma, even before meeting the Avengers, was because of all the stuff that happened before she met them, like, and then Vision and whatnot. So, like, the kids is, like, the last bit, but for whatever reason, that's all they chose to deal with.
So, I do have another comic book question for you, Patrick.
Oh, okay.
As we're kind of talking about sexism. Wizards and witches are different things? Like, they don't practice the same... Like, wasn't there a comment somewhere in the movie about how,
witches
like,
versus sorcerers.
Witches do different
Sorcery versus witchcraft was the distinction.
Sorcerers.
That feels sexist. Am I wrong?
What was that?
It feels sexist. Am I wrong?
Assuming that all... Well, but, I mean, not all of the sorcerers are male. We see at least that, there's a bunch of female sorcerers. There's the one that sacrifices herself.
What about witches? Are there male witches?
Not in... I don't think we see any in the film. I think that... gosh, I'm forgetting which one of Tommy and Billy. Billy is the one that is, the one that has magic powers in the comics. And in the comics, I think he does refer to himself more in terms of witchcraft than sorcery, but.
That's interesting. Is he genderqueer in the comics?
Yes.
Well, that's even more problematic then, isn't it?
How so?
Women and gay people or gay men can be witches.
But
I just like, are there any straight male witches?
Sorcerers. I think straight male witch would be a warlock technically.
Okay.
I mean, in fantasy tropes, the witches and warlocks was just like the waiter/waitress terms. Like, they both did witchcraft, they just had different names.
Okay.
But in Marvel, like, they never really established where the magic comes from. Like, a sorcerer, like Doctor Strange has magic, it seems just from whatever, he's just trained in it.
Well, I mean, in the Doctor Strange film, the Sorcerer Supreme, the Ancient One, was also female presenting.
True. I'm thinking more on the witch side now. But, like Hollywood, when they give out awards, they just give them to actors now, right? Not actors and actresses. It just feels like the magical world could update its lingo for a more contemporary kind of equality. But, I should quit complaining. Let's talk about the Illuminati.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that was a weird thing. Is the Illuminati a comic thing?
Yes,
it is.
But not those characters. At least not all of those characters.
Right. Well, different universes,
I know the
obviously.
Illuminati from the conspiracy
theories,
no,
they call themselves the Illuminati, but they're not that Illuminati in the comics. They just
it seems
they just call themselves that.
Of all the names to choose,
they just call themselves that because they are. I mean, this was something revealed very, not too long ago that they basically a group of, kind of Marvel characters were revealed to kind of have been kind of meeting together and working together in secret to sort of guide things.
So, but in a way, they are then.
A bad job
They are kind of like the Illuminati in
a sense, yeah.
In the conspiracy theory kind of way, right? Like that they are behind the scenes, kind of pulling the strings.
Well, except they're not a conspiracy theory because they were actually doing that.
Well, yes, I mean, you're claiming that Rich's Illuminati aren't real in this world.
Correct.
Right?
I mean, in essentially, yeah. I mean,
you probably don't believe in Bigfoot either, I assume.
I do not. Anyways, you said you had a comic book question for me.
Oh, no, I just want to talk about the Illuminati because here were a bunch of characters, well, at least a couple, that people had been talking about wanting to see.
Yes.
On the big screen. Mm-hmm. And then at least one that people definitely did. I've not heard anybody say they wanted to see on the big screen.
I'm assuming you're talking about
he was there nonetheless.
Blackagar Voltagon.
Yeah, Black Bolt I don't think has.
I do like that they had the same guy. I do like that they had the same guy play him from the TV show.
No, it was nice. Well. I agree. I agree.
I did enjoy that.
Well, yeah, given how people thought about the show and the way he goes out.
Yeah.
It was fitting, but so people have been talking about John Krasinski, right?
Yes.
As Mr. Fantastic for years.
Well, not just Krasinski.
You get to see
Krasinski and Emily Blunt as Invisible Woman.
Well, true, but Invisible Woman was not in it, so. But they've been talking about
it was implied
Krasinski
that he has a wife, so she could
right as Mr. Fantastic all this time. Like, Was it all that you had hoped it would be? Like, did it live up to your expectations? Does he look like Mr. Fantastic? Could you see him, at the center of a Marvel and MCU film? Like, what was your take on Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic?
I thought he was perfectly good.
Oh no! Is that your perfectly good? Like, pretty good, or is it like Rich's kind of a damning with faint praise?
He's basically a glorified cameo. There's not really, a lot there.
Agreed. Yeah.
Nobody really has the screen time, maybe except for Xavier, but he's already established himself.
So it was a nice little it was a slightly longer than normal Marvel Easter egg. I mean, it does raise the question of,
it's a pretty long Easter egg.
Because if you think about it, that the Captain Marvel of that world is not our Captain Marvel. The Captain America of that world is not our Captain America. So it raises the question of, if nobody else in this world, except for Mordo, is our version, then does that mean Krasinski would be Reed Richards in the 616?
It kind of makes sense, right? Because it's like, I think about it in terms of The Flash that we used to watch and talk about on this show. Like, there are parallels but differences, but some are closer in terms of paralleling and some are more different. I don't know how to read it. To me, he looks like a beardy Reed Richards.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give him that. But I thought, I agree with you. It was a very kind of talky cameo, too.
Yeah, you only get to use his powers once, and then he gets
spaghettied. So it's not the it's not the best showing for Reed Richards, the smartest man in the planet, because they're all like, "Oh, we can handle Wanda," and Wanda just wrecks them.
Yeah, and I don't know why they think that. Like, it is kind of annoying when it's like, "Oh, we can handle you, Wanda." It's like, what do you know tells you that can
Well, they're
happen?
not really listening to Doctor Strange, and if their Wanda is basically doesn't have, if their Wanda never encountered the Mind Stone and never got souped up from that, then she's basically just got telekinetic powers. Because that's what Wanda had at the beginning.
It's a reasonable
So it may just be that
there's,
that may be like, oh, we know Wanda, she doesn't have all these crazy powers.
Scarlet Witch powers or whatever,
Right.
That, which reminds me of another kind of question or plot hole that I have about the film.
Yay!
Well, because we see that in the 838, they point out that Doctor Strange of their world defeated Thanos by dream walking and whatnot.
Yes.
Or helped defeat Thanos, because I guess they would implied that, like, they gave him that statue more as like a thank you than actual he was the only one who defeated him.
But doesn't that mean
more hiding what went wrong?
Back
right?
in back in Endgame, like Doctor Strange or Infinity War, Doctor Strange told us, our Doctor Strange said there was only one way to defeat Thanos, and it was what he did. It was giving him the Time Stone. But doesn't this imply there was at least another way?
Well, no, because the 838 Doctor Strange had the help of different characters. Our Doctor Strange...
our Doctor Strange had a crap ton of characters helping him too.
But what I'm saying is, though, he didn't have Black Bolt. He didn't have... Like, hypothetically, our Doctor Strange was on Titan looking to the future and said, with what we have right now, this is the only way it works.
Wait, was he looking across all the multiverse when he was looking for solutions?
He looked at some number of million of possibilities. I don't know. It just seems...
Right, but they could have all been just in his universe. Like,
that's what I'm saying. He could have seen the possibility of Doctor Strange with Reed Richards and Black Bolt and Captain Marvel and Captain Carter, but he's like, well, we don't have those people here, so that's not useful for us. You know what I mean?
He might not have even seen that as a possible solution.
Well, see, because that's one of my questions about. Because that's one of my because when the film first started, and you get that scene with Dr. West from the previous film at the wedding. And, he sort of brings up with Steven, was that the only way that people could have been saved? I thought the film was going to reveal that, no, Doctor Strange did see other ways that Thanos could be defeated. What he did was the only one where he gets to survive. Like, all the other options were required, like the 838 required Doctor Strange to die. Because they seem to be setting up this whole, Doctor, that there was something about, like, what Doctor Strange did that was wrong. And then, that's not the direction that the film ultimately goes in.
Which would have been kind of cool, especially when he ran into his, sort of evil version of himself. To have this kind of like, hey, you're not that good either, but this is what you could become kind of deal. But they never really dealt with that.
But we did get a really good fight with musical notes and staffs, so I don't think you should complain too much.
We had a fight.
Yeah. So, any thoughts on Black Bolt, Patrick? Has he appeared here? Any better than he was on the Hulu?
Oh,
series?
He was definitely better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well,
is it because his head exploded? Is that what made him better?
I'm not sure what made him. He didn't really do much, which is probably better at this point because the Black Bolt in the US special or series was just it was terrible. So,
it was a tough way to go out for him. Though,
what is his power specifically?
He talks really loud.
So he just can like basically make like really loud.
Well,
he
can't talk without making loud sound waves. That's why he remains silent all the time. Right. And even the slightest whisper he makes could devastate things. So he has to be completely.
It really felt like he must have. Yeah, just barely whispered.
You think he'd wear like a mask or something, so in case he stubbed his toe or something.
Oh, that's a good point. Like you get up at night to get a drink or something, and you.
Well, in the comics, he just.
What happens when he sneezes?
Well, in the comics, that's how he discovered what his abilities were. Is that he lost control, and for the first time, his powers kicked in, and that's what ended up killing his parents.
And then he still didn't wear like Cyclops has like the thing on his eyes so that
he's just got a.
Well, maybe there's nothing.
It's all self-control.
Maybe there's nothing to. Yeah, maybe there's nothing that can contain it. But I guess Dwight
can.
So Dwight Schrute is. Oh, that's a good point. Why didn't it just go out the front through his skin? I didn't even thought about that. Right,
like sound it doesn't come out.
It just should have been
because sound doesn't come out your nose.
Well, I think it does a little bit.
It's weird that it bounces off of his skin. His skin is indestructible by his powers.
It goes out the back of his head.
Well, his skin isn't necessarily indestructible. He just projects it away from him.
I guess that's how sound works.
I mean, that's how it works in that, it's projected away from him. So it's probably not not a moment to think about much.
Very violent scene, that whole
It
section.
is, yes. It's one. Yeah.
Well, it was a moment where Marvel looked a little bit different.
Yeah.
For example, I was really happy to see Captain Carter.
Yeah.
On the screen.
Yeah.
And I would love a Captain Carter movie, but I guess given how it ends for her, that's unlikely to be coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could do an animated one.
Well,
yeah, I guess.
So,
I mean, obviously you can imply that there's other versions of Captain Carter and all these characters because the multiverse.
Right. Of course. And
again, I think that's what we all kind of hoped is that you'd have, again, kind of like the what if thing where at some point all those universes pluck people out from theirs to fight in something.
I'd say there is a rumor that a live action Captain Carter series is being developed.
I think it would be excellent. I would be in for that.
Is it a prequel before she knows that she's
I don't know. I just literally Googled Captain Carter series and I'm looking at headlines. So
it's probably on a different planet or universe anyway, Rich. So
yeah, again, that's sort of the hope is that if you got to attach any of these characters like Reed Richards or Captain Carter, they're not gone. Right. This is just sort of almost a what if scenario.
Well, Captain Carter is in the sense that we're not going to have Captain Carter in the 616 because she's dead.
Right, but with Multiverse, you could get a Captain Carter from any universe and bring
them
anywhere.
But I'm just saying that
to the point it doesn't matter.
The Reed Richards can be in the 616 because we haven't seen him yet. But we've seen Peggy. Her 616 story is done.
That's true. Right. Though hypothetically, you can imply that she could also go back in time or something like Steve did.
Yeah, but they don't have this is the time stone anymore.
This is the problem with where Marvel is, though. Like the stakes don't feel as high. Like Black Bolt, like they all die, all the Illuminati die, but like not really, right? Yeah. And so the stakes feel lessened. How'd you feel about
sort of like,
Rambeau,
Infinity
Patrick?
War.
Right.
Oh, I was happy.
Patrick, how'd you feel about Rambeau's appearance?
I was happy to see her. You know, I like Maria.
And how about?
I mean,
how about Professor X?
Weird group of Illuminati. Like that the 838 is a weird
it's true.
Illuminati group. Oh, I'm always happy to see Professor X.
It's always kind of fun.
You know, particularly given that he was apparently meant to be the animated series version of Professor X.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that little reference. But yeah, I mean, Patrick Stewart is he's Patrick Stewart, and his Professor X is I do wish they had left that unspoiled by the trailers. Because both that and in the final trailers that appeared like the week the film came out, they started showing the Captain Carter shield. I really wish they had left more of that under wraps. It would have, I think, had more of an effect. Another thing that I'm a little bit disappointed in, because I really do love Ejiofor's Baron Mordo, but we didn't get the Baron Mordo from the 616 at all in this movie, and I really liked. I liked what they seemed to be setting him up for at the end of the first Doctor Strange movie, and all we basically get is, you know, Doctor Strange saying, oh, you know, yeah, he hates me and has tried to kill me many, many times. And I'm like, when would he have had time to do that? Like, there's not a lot of time between Doctor Strange and
that's a good point.
Infinity War and Endgame, like, and we don't get to see any of it. Like, I was kind of disappointed that the Mordo, the Mordo we see, we don't get to see the 616 Mordo in this film. So I was a little disappointed. I really liked that Mordo.
Yeah. I almost kind of hoped that, like, when they saw him the first time, it would have turned out that Mordo also found a way to, like our 616 had found a way to, like, travel the multiverse as well, and, like, that's why he was there or something. That would have been, like, a nice reveal. Like, again, like, that's the kind of another common enemy they could fight in bouncing to the multiverse.
I will say that the film, I thought, did better with Christine Palmer's character than the first film.
Yeah. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, she's around more, sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was basically just the former girlfriend in the previous film. At least in this, she had, you know, a little more agency.
I mean, she was kind of like the former wife, though, in this one, wasn't she? Or was she...
No, she married someone else at the beginning of the film.
No, but the other version of her, where Doctor Strange had died.
I feel like, doesn't she say they didn't?
Yeah, I think they just, it's the same thing we see, is that the relationship just never works out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought they meant they got a divorce.
No, I just think they never got together.
Oh.
Never got together in any kind of long-term committed way.
Okay.
What about America Chavez? We haven't talked about her.
One of my favorite parts of the movie, I think.
Yeah. She was
because it felt new, and I felt like oftentimes when they introduce new characters, it feels very offhanded, but she felt like integrated and important. You didn't care for her?
Oh, no. I thought she was fine. I mean, it's not really her film.
Another fine.
Well, it's not really her film, so we don't really get to know, you know, a lot about her. I thought the actor did well playing her.
Yeah, I think the biggest disappointment was that it wasn't more of her. I was really hoping that there was going to be a sequence where she was just taking Doctor Strange through the multiverse and kind of being a guide.
No, there was that. I mean, they do travel through a whole bunch of them in that one sequence.
But like, that's what I'm saying though. It's a split second. There's nothing that you don't get to look at them. You don't get to experience them.
You don't get like it's like a tour.
Yeah, but then if you do that, there are people that are just going to complain about the movie being a series of Easter eggs.
Again, if it had been a movie that was supposed to set up,
that would be a very legitimate complaint.
You think so? So
I'm so tired of Easter eggs.
I know, but yet you're also complaining about Doctor Strange not having more Easter eggs.
Did I?
You just said you would have liked the tour of the multiverse better.
Well, Rich said there should have been a tour
of the
multiverse. Oh, well, but that doesn't mean Easter eggs, does it?
What else would the tour...
It would be fun to see other worlds.
Very Easter.
Things don't have to be Easter eggs. You can have a legitimate
Easter eggy.
In Patrick's view, it has to be Easter eggs. You have to imagine something new.
It's in the MCU. It would absolutely be Easter eggs. It's not my view. It's just the nature of the MCU at this point. It would be Easter eggs.
I mean, I will agree with Patrick. If they did do a thing like that, it would just be a number of Easter eggs, like Bruce Campbell being a hot dog seller or something.
I don't know. Like I could. Well, that was. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
a little too inside.
Raimi Raimi puts.
I don't know. Like I'd like to. Yeah. I know. I get it. Like that's the insidery joke. I could hang around the Paint universe. I don't think like the Paint universe probably has a ton of Easter eggs in it. I just like to hang out in the Paint universe for a while.
It also would have been interesting to see, again, variants of characters. You know, again, like Doctor Strange, you know, him meeting his evil self.
Or his
like,
paint self.
You know, seeing... Yeah, but just seeing characters with different aspects of it, like, you know, Doctor Strange that's super humble or something, I think would have been kind of neat. Like,
just the food. Like, just take me on
just
a
the
tour.
Like, you know?
An Anthony Bourdain
like
kind of
want,
tour the multi-universe.
Destinations Unknown.
Multiverse Unknown is what you want.
Yeah.
There you go, right?
Yeah, universe is unknown.
It'd be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Again, just because some of them, again, it's a very kind of Doctor Strange thing to have like this sort of almost acid trip of like, you know, visuals happen at one point, you know, where it's like you're becoming cubes or you paint all that, and then it's over in a second.
Were the effects any better this time for you, Patrick? On Doctor Strange 1, you were profoundly let down.
Yeah, I liked the effects in this
as
one.
I recall. Okay, good.
Yeah, I was not as. I mean, again, it seemed like Raimi was doing things other than just kind of Inceptioning.
Right.
So, you know,
I think that's a fair.
So yeah, I thought this. I would say this film is a better Doctor Strange film than Doctor Strange. Or I like this film more than the original Doctor Strange.
I would say they were equally Doctor Strangey.
I would say for me, and I realize this is going to be, you know, for Alan, this will be damning the film with faint praise. I put this film along kind of the same, for me in terms of like where it fits in the MCU. I would probably put it somewhere around, you know, Age of Ultron, which for me means something very different than it does for Alan.
Oof.
Yeah, though I would kind of agree that like while there's a lot of neat aspects to it, I don't think it was particularly great. So I kind of Age of Ultron or like maybe a little bit above Age of Ultron.
Yep, I think it's a really good Doctor Strange film.
Age of Ultron.
It is not the next big thing in the MCU.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Even as a Doctor Strange film, like I would much rather watch the first Doctor Strange because it had a bit. At least it felt like it flowed better.
I thought this flowed. I've seen a lot of people complaining about the writing. I'm like, I don't see anything wrong with the writing in this film.
Yeah, it's a little hectic, a little helter-skelter for me, but I like the idea that it's a very good Doctor
The film
Strange
called
movie.
Multiverse of Madness is a little helter-skelter for you.
But to me, there wasn't enough Multiverse of Madness. You only went to one other or two other multiverses.
Right. It's a pretty good Doctor Strange film, and it's a fine MCU film. Yeah. That seems like a fitting epitaph for this movie.
See, I would say it's a good Doctor Strange film and a fine MCU film.
So we're getting closer then, I feel like.
Yes, it's just we're just different on intonation, really.
Right. And I think fine is, again, suggesting that I fear that peak superhero has passed.
Yeah, but I don't...
Actually, I don't fear it. If they can't offer something better, I'm ready to go watch different movies.
Yeah, you know, and I've had Morbius and in this movie, and I've definitely...
Okay, you can't judge the MCU by Morbius. That's just not fair.
I know, but I'm just saying that feeling of past peak superhero is definitely settling in now of watching those two back to back.
Yeah.
I know it's not
a malaise.
Fair. I know it's not MCU, but like it's still very much that feeling. I also want to watch anything not superhero.
Yeah, there's just a malaise that's set in, you know? Like we're living in the Carter years right now is the problem.
So we're in the era of stagflation is what you're saying.
No, like, I think that is also a pretty good way to explain this.
Yeah. For like neat points and going all the way with them.
You know, so the question is, will Ronald Reagan be your savior, Patrick, or will he?
That's not good.
Not come. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, the next thing we've got is I think Thor's the next film, isn't it?
But that one looks nice. I'm interested for
Thor. I think Thor has a chance.
We've got Thor, and we've got the Ms. Marvel series, or what's coming up next. I think Ms. Marvel first.
Mm. But the Jane Foster Thor looks great, and She-Hulk didn't look terrible to me.
Oh, really?
So She-Hulk looked neat.
I thought the CGI looked really not good.
The people did complain about the CGI. That's true.
Yeah, the CGI looks
kind
I
of
don't know.
cartoony.
Oh, I'm assuming that is early CGI and it's gonna be fixed. But yeah, it was not good.
They have the other Hulk in there, so it would be weird for them to be like, we're gonna skimp on the CGI now of all times.
Yeah.
Well, but it's Disney Plus, right? Where they did the one Moon Knight that was completely dark.
Is a good point.
Yeah,
right?
I do like the idea of kind of a
decision.
it's almost kind of a sitcom, like plot.
Right.
You know, the She-Hulk attorney at law. Like I like that, but yeah, the CGI and the way it just looked really dodgy in some shots. I'm just like, oh, I really hope that's not indicative of the final product. So
we'll see. The truth is, we live in a post-peak superhero world.
Well, really, yeah. I mean, everything's just
get.
trying to live up to Hawkeye at this point. So it's really hard once they achieved the greatness that was the Hawkeye series.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is sort of downhill from there.
By definition, if it's not Hawkeye, it can't be better.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Hawkeye is definitively,
In some universes, Rich, that is in fact true.
Man, in some universes, all they know is Hawkeye.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine?
Well, in all multiverses, Hawkeye is the best hero. Like that's just a given.
And in those universes, they're dead.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh,
hey,
well played.
It's
Rich.
important to note that in the 616, the Avengers only lost when they didn't have Hawkeye with them.
Oh,
That's one universe out of an infinite number.
Yeah, but it's the only one that matters.
Where they lost with Hawkeye.
But just
such a small data set.
How much
that I think
better the
conclusions
Illuminati
you're
would have
drawing
done against
from it
Wanda
are
if they had,
not
that
really
universe's
legitimate.
version of
A guy who
Hawkeye.
shoots arrows. Yeah.
Well, this seems like a decent place to end because there's no way we're ever going to agree on Hawkeye. I mean, if we're just flat honest.
Well,
with each other.
there's nothing really.
In one universe, there is not really anything. There is at least one universe where we all agree on Hawkeye.
What was that, Rich?
I said there's at least one universe where we all agree on Hawkeye.
Which one is that?
I don't know. No one's found it yet.
Oh, yeah. Now, there might be one where we all agree on Hawkeye, but I feel it unlikely. But that's okay. It's the Hawkeye disagreements that make the world go round.
Well, but it's also the thing.
Think about it, Patrick. There's a universe where you don't like Hawkeye.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I'm more like America Chavez in that there is only one of me in the entire multiverse.
No, I'd like to think there's one of you on every planet, but they're all exactly the same on Hawkeye.
That'd be fine. Yeah, I could deal with that.
Living very different lives, but they all love Hawkeye.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to think that there was a multiverse version of myself that actually, wrote the Hawkeye
Don't
Disney
say
Plus
it.
series.
Don't. Oh, all right. I thought you were going to say where you were Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I like that you still committed to the idea that you're not Hawkeye.
I'm not Hawkeye.
You're just
right,
still watching
just
Hawkeye.
writing Hawkeye.
Oh, yeah. Listen, there have to be some...
I don't want to be Captain
You're
America.
There have to be at least some universal constants.
Exactly.